Okay, guys, I'm going to let everybody in, so we'll go on mute for 2 minutes, then I'll give a quick intro and then turn it over to Beth. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Sorry we're a couple minutes late, just waiting for everybody to get signed in here. Welcome to what is now, I guess, our fifth Fireside Chat event put on by the Mounts Department of Business and Tourism. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jeff McKinnon. I'm a faculty in the department. This is an initiative we undertook a few months back, sort of, I guess, the beginning of the school year, just to try and engage students, integrate with industry, and just keep things interesting during COVID. With all the online learning, just trying to create a platform to keep people engaged and create sort of a bit of a different learning experience. So I think largely they've been successful. Really excited about tonight's sort of I guess season finale, if you will, as the school year sort of comes to a close. We have Premier Rankin with us. Premier Rankin is Nova Scotia guy. He's, I guess, just recently, maybe 40 some odd days, I suppose, on the job. And as we were joking before, I think a fairly complicated transition. A lot goes on in those 40 some odd days. Premier Rankin's been sort of, he's been in private industry outside of Nova Scotia, been working in other areas of Canada, came back to Nova Scotia. Timberley guy, represents the area of Timberley Prospect, has had a couple of different cabinet posts. Back in February was sort of, I guess, appointed or elected within the party to be Premier of Nova Scotia. So we're really excited to have him here. Perhaps maybe not the most important, but a very important consideration is he is an alumnus of Mount St. Vincent, has a Bachelor's of Business Administration from a few years ago, a few years after me, but that's okay. And joining us tonight will be Beth Connell. So Beth is a student in the department, in the Business and Tourism Department. She's in her final year, graduates in a couple weeks. So congratulations, Beth. And we have, in our normal format, we've kind of circulated to faculty and students. We've compiled a list of questions. So there won't really be a more traditional Q&A opportunity, but the questions have all been kind of generated from the various attendees. So that said, please join me in welcoming Premier Rankin. And Beth, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank Premier Rankin just from all the students for being here and taking a time out of your busy schedule to join us today. I think we'd like to start by just hearing about your journey to becoming Premier and where it kind of started and how it got to you to where you are now.
Thanks very much, Jeff and Beth, for introducing me, and it's a real pleasure to be here with everyone. I think it's really important for public servants to get out and talk to people that are studying, to get involved potentially in public life or business to help grow our economy in the province or outside of the province. My journey, Jeff referenced, I was from Timberley. That's the community I represent today, but I did travel outside of the province and I enjoyed that. But I think that at that time, which was 2006, I graduated from the Mount with a business degree. There was, I would say, limited opportunities in the private sector. I concentrated in management, and I had the good fortune of growing up in a family of entrepreneurs, and we had a gas station at the time. It was the Beachville Irving, and so I actually worked there helping manage the station while taking my studies, and then I was able to have just some of that exposure. And I went out west first to Jasper. And then I landed in Ottawa and stayed there for 4 years and worked my way up with a commercial development company, and quickly became director of operations for what's called Diamond Storage. And they were on an expansion growth plan. So I was able to have the chance of managing over 100 people and 7 locations, and getting involved in everything to do with business, HR and marketing, operational management, and that really gave me a wide scope of opportunity. And I did take the chance to come home and start a business myself with a few partners, called Premier Self Storage in Dartmouth, which incidentally was just sold before I became premier. But that time spent away was valuable to garner some experience and bring it back home and create jobs right here in Dartmouth. And that was just helped me get some world experience. And I always wanted to serve my community in some capacity. The opportunity came up provincially with a popular MLA not running again, Bill Esterbrooks, and I went for it. And I just continued to take opportunities that were in front of me, taking some risks along the way, especially entrepreneurship. You have to take risks. In an elected office, you obviously do too. And so I was fortunate to be appointed to cabinet in my second term under a cause I feel passionately about with environment, and then subsequently lands and forestry. And then enough colleagues convinced me to go for the premier job, and I worked really hard, and I was able to be successful, as Jeff mentioned, in February. So all of that happened quite quickly. I'm 37 years old, relatively young for being in this position, but I really feel humble that I'm able to take on this big challenge right now. And already in a month and a bit in, we're really hitting the ground running and hitting the priorities that I ran on during the leadership.
It sounds like your experience in business really helped towards where you are today. You said you were in your previous roles with Minister of Environment and Minister of Lands and Forests. How did those experiences and positions shape your approach to governing today?
That's important. I've always had an interest in environment, but chose business and university, so I don't have the background technical knowledge that a lot of say biologists and scientists have. But I always had a keen interest in doing what we could, and fully understood that we were in the climate crisis before I took on that role, and was I would say a strong voice at the caucus table for doing more work around land conservation, reducing our greenhouse gas emissions and things like that. And so when I was in environment, I was able to lead on some important files like carbon pricing, looking at dealing with environmental racism. Very proud of the work we did to close Boat Harbor and things like that. And then the forestry review was fast coming, and that's why I was appointed to Lands and Forestry to lead some of the work around Leahy's report, which is underway. And I ran on accelerating some of that work to reduce clear cutting, among other recommendations. But trying to really make that industry evolve so that it's more sustainable. And I do believe that we need to value our resource sector, but we all need to work harder to make them more respectful of the environment and really economically here for the long run. And we have to recognize we're in a climate and biodiversity loss crisis that are connected. So I felt like that was part of how I shaped where I see our province going next, and that is capitalizing on some opportunities there, because through challenges, I always try to see opportunities. And that's why you see things that I'm doing quickly, like incentivizing electric vehicles, helping low-income people reduce their power bills through efficiency programs, and some neat policy areas where I think you can get a lot of win-wins, or even win-win-wins under environment, lower power rates for businesses and customers. And obviously, they're just good public policy for reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. So that's just a little bit, but I could give longer answers on that one for sure.
And, sustainability is become and is becoming very important in our world as of now. So it's great to have someone who's focused on that as well. Um, was it during those positions that you wanted to become premier that you realized you wanted to, or the mentoring along with Premier McNeil?
Yeah, I've had, I would say, a number of mentors. Obviously, working with Stephen McNeil has an influence on me. I really respected his view on fiscal responsibility, especially having a business background and, frankly, being a younger person, um, making sure that we didn't burden future generations with the programs that we're incurring today. So I really believed that we had to hold the line on some tough issues with increased cost to government. But also on the environment side, I equate environmental responsibility to that too. And I think more and more, I have to say, our generation and younger see that we are burdening the next generation with social costs, carbon in the atmosphere, pollution. So I think more and more you'll see governments, especially, and hopefully businesses, looking at a more full cost accounting approach to doing business. And I think that when I had the carbon pricing file, that was really interesting to me. And I think that we can do a lot more. And it's not, I think, an either or conversation anymore. It's becoming more and more mainstream that people recognize that we can actually grow a more low carbon economy, and we can reap a lot of benefits along the way. And so that's what I always try to make sure we're conveying, is that you don't have to lose, whether you're in a traditional sector or in a more knowledge-based sector, that there are benefits when we shift our policy that looks at sustainability of resources, that puts more emphasis on value add, and not as much on high volume, low value products that we export, but really treating our resources, I think, the way that we can maximize our local economic benefit and approach the economy from a more circular economy and maximizing the resources that we have.
Perfect. Could you share with us? I know you touched on sustainability and biodiversity, and that being a key pillar in your campaign. How did you identify and come up with the key pillars that you used in your campaign? And were they of personal interest, or were they based off feedback from the general population in your past experience?
I think it is experience for sure. And I mentioned moving away to other provinces. And first of all, I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think the popular thing for politicians and others to say is that we need to keep our young people here. I don't really believe that. I think that there's value to leave, and maybe you come back, and maybe you don't. We want to attract people here too, and we're seeing that more and more. But I wouldn't change my movements at all. I spent time in Jasper living in a national park, appreciating nature and being around wildlife, grizzly bears and things like that, and just really seeing firsthand the value of protecting nature. And that stuck with me, climbing mountains and things like that. And then working in Ottawa, which was bilingual, I got to practice a bit of French, a lot more multiculturalism there. And since I moved home, we're becoming more and more diverse, which is an awesome strength. And so I'm really proud of some of the direction that we're going, with more and more immigration here that's supporting our economy. So that's helped shape the value there, and also looking at how we treat our most vulnerable citizens through the experience I've had, both in an elected office, dealing with issues like Boat Harbor, and recognizing that past governments and our systems have been wrong in dealing with different population groups that have been either left out of a conversation, or intentionally systematically left out of being included, and where our province should go next. And so the pillars I ran on were really around environmental sustainability, and then equity and fairness, and growing an economy that's more inclusive. We have responsibilities, provincial government, around healthcare and education and community services, and ensuring that we have appropriate services for people. but the vision is about what a future economy looks like and how that prosperity can be more shared and more sustainable.
It's amazing to hear all the progress that is going to be made, and just by having you in office. Do you find that you think back to your MSVU degree at all during your time in your positions, and has that helped you at all?
For sure. I think the time I spent there, first of all, and when I talk about equity, I think the Mount stands out as an institution that has an explicit emphasis on doing what's right for equity, and obviously a strong emphasis on supporting women. As someone that grew up with two sisters, and a lot of my network being women, I think we need to do a lot more to make sure that we have more in. And I can just tell you an example. I'm only a two-term MLA, but the first term there was less women in the House, and I've already noticed that our decorum and debate is actually a lot more substantive in the last little while. And so I hope that continues. And I really hope that there'll be a woman premier. It's hard to believe in 2021 that we haven't had a premier yet. That's a woman. So I hope that changes soon. And again, working with communities across the province, our historic Black communities, Mi'kmaq, people from different abilities, all of these things, I think the Mount stands strong on, and I really value that. I liked the smaller class sizes. I thought the teachers were all really approachable, except that Peter Mumbercat guy that I see on the screen. I'm just joking. No, Peter was great. He was a marketing teacher when I was there, and happy to see him as the lead on this department, on the business faculty. But I did have great teachers, and they were approachable, and I really valued that.
Amazing. Yeah, MSVU is always created an experience that's very reflective of the diversity in our communities, and I'm definitely grateful for that too. So you're on your 42nd day of the job. What's the most impactful learning experience since taking the role, and what do you kind of see as your biggest challenges ahead?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is definitely still the pandemic. While we're doing very, very well, the best in the country, especially in this region, but watching what's happening in other provinces and shutting down, some of them dealing with variant cases, that's something that worries me, and we have to watch every single day. So that's something I think we need to make sure that we have our continued main priority on. But I don't think it should let us cloud other important issues of inequality, of social justice, of things like supporting the most vulnerable, and those are key issues for me that I do want to see some substantial progress on. But what's I guess surprising is it takes a lot of time to do things. So it's not altogether surprising having been a minister, but you think you can just make a change and it'll happen in a day or a few days, but it really does take some months. And I had limited time for the budget to try to get some substantial programs, and looking at our flexibility, inheriting a $500 million deficit, but it was unacceptable to me that we had the lowest income assistance rates, frankly, in the country, when we're doing so well, and we brag about our economic performance and our strong tourism numbers, growing our exports. Those are all positive things, but it's I needed to see a substantial adjustment there. So the $100 increase for everyone on income assistance was something I really needed in the budget.
Gotcha. At the beginning, you had talked about the pandemic and kind of communicating with the Atlantic bubble. How difficult is it to coordinate with the other provinces, the premiers, health officials, when navigating certain Atlantic bubble decisions, and kind of balancing the Atlantic element in desire of Nova Scotian businesses to open the bubble and get that tourism flow back?
Yeah, it is a balance, but I can't say enough about our public health team. And Dr. Strang does look at what he thinks are reasonable risks, and I certainly wouldn't relax any restrictions without his comfort level. He was comfortable with relaxing New Brunswick, and then today Newfoundland. So um, I think if you want to focus purely on politics, then you would wait and you coordinate everything. But I gave ample notice to other provinces that we were ready. They weren't quite ready, and I respect their point of view. But I didn't want to unnecessarily burden people that were either here already and self-isolating, or were coming here, recognizing when they go back, they'll have to self-isolate up until April 19th. Um, Even just that one change for New Brunswick, there was a president of an airline that told me that actually helped book more flights in here. So we do need to recognize that people's lives are disrupted through this. So we do need to focus on public health restrictions and evidence base, but we definitely don't want to unnecessarily cause more burdens than what's necessary, than what our chief medical health officer is. So I'll collaborate as much as I can, but if the other neighboring provinces aren't ready, I'm not going to make our citizens suffer for that.
Yeah, it's definitely, things have been going well in Nova Scotia, and we definitely trust you guys to do what you're doing, and because it's produced these amazing results in the province. Some of those sectors in Nova Scotia, certain industries, what do you find, which industries do you find most critical in Nova Scotia's success? And do you think some of those industries are the more, they're needing more support and recovery?
So there's a couple things there. Really important question. I think the ones that need the most support are the ones that have been impacted by the policy decisions we make that are in the public interest. So when we talk about reducing capacity because of bigger social distancing, so that meant gyms, restaurants, spas, those real close facing service sectors needed some immediate support. So since I've been in, we've put in place the real property tax rebate program, first for those small businesses like restaurants and those that I mentioned. And that was equal to 50% of what their property tax was over the last 6 months. And then we did basically the same thing for hotels, motels, and operators, those connected to the tourism. We will look at that again if we have another substantial restriction, or if we're not able to open up outside of the Atlantic region this summer. I know everyone's really eager for the summer. That's our peak season, and tourism is so important to our province. And so we'll really have to be watching that closely and see the evolving science. Dr. Strang's not quite there on the whole vaccine taking away from the ability for an asymptomatic spreader. So that's a very live discussion at the national level. And then if we have more comfort, then there might be, I think, more opportunity to ease some more restrictions. But the approach works so far, and that's that we're cautious when we ease back. We act immediately when we need to shut down. So if the variants start coming into our province and spread, then we'll be shutting down really quickly. That means we'll have an impact on businesses, and a fair government should be there to support. The budget, on the other hand, doesn't focus as much on the one-off supports. We focus a lot on what a future economy looks like, and strategically investing in things like computer science programs at universities to support what I think is, well, it is the fastest growing sector of our economy, the high tech sector. Companies are looking for labor availability in jurisdictions, and it's really competitive. So if we want to attract more and more digital-based economies here, then we need to start investing in people and training to make sure that happens. And then other core industries, it's hard to pick which are the more important ones because different regions have different comparative advantages, but obviously the wine sector in the valley, so we invested in a strategy there. Those resource-based sectors are still really important in forestry, and there's a transition fund for that. Fisheries, those things are really important, but we need to really support Nova Scotians, and I think a lot of the ways government can do that is through research, innovation, and ensuring we're looking at 10, 20, 30 years down the road so that we're actually enabling more talent to thrive in the region.
Yeah, making that space for more businesses to come on and have that tourism industry ready for them to be successful would be really important. Um, at the Mount, we do have a tourism program, and there's a lot of tourism students in attendance here tonight. Um, can you tell us if there's any new programs, or if you're strictly going to focus on like the tech side of things, or if there's anything new coming as far as tourism support?
So there's no, like I said, we'll be mindful of our own policy choices, and if we happen to restrict the opportunity to grow business, what the thing we really focused on in the past few years was both marketing to other provinces, having confidence of the product that we have here, to attract people from all over, and there's strategic regions of the world that we focus on. We didn't put an aggressive package in the budget for that without knowing when our borders are actually going to open up, and ensuring that whatever we do spend is an effective use of public money to attract people into Nova Scotia. But I'm definitely open to continuing down that path. And the other thing I think that we can do as a government is strong placemaking, supporting rural internet in communities. And then I think you just referenced the high tech. So there's a digital fund that helps operators become more advanced in that space of ensuring that we have better capabilities for digital.
Yeah, the marketing campaign would be very helpful, and like having that base as Nova Scotia being as successful as it has during quarantine, and instilling that trust in the tourists as well, I think will be really important. So a few former MSVU classmates are very involved in the airports in the Atlantic. There are obviously significant concerns around viability of the regional airports and the impact of tourism sector in the economy. Has the government put anything together for plans to address this?
Yeah, the airports definitely are suffering. Our airlines are, and we need to continue to press the federal government, who has jurisdiction with those, to look at supporting flights. And we, in the past, looked at providing some subsidies for new routes, and those are the types of things I'd like to look at if possible. And there's some positive signs as of late with the announcement from WestJet, and we'll continue to ensure that we're looking at ways that we can be open while respecting the advice from public health. So again, I think what most people want to see is more traffic. So there's a limit of what government support can actually do to help the viability of these places that are so important. But again, we'll assess as we go along, and today is another milestone for allowing people from all over Atlantic Canada can come here without self-isolating. So we hope that helps. I don't see a change anywhere outside of Atlantic Canada right now because of the challenges we're seeing in other provinces. And I do believe that strong public health policy is the strongest economic policy we can have right now.
Yeah, it's starting to look like hopefully we're nearing the end of the pandemic, and the importance of public health. Uh, as far as the importance of public health and promoting that is to make a strong economy. Is that a opportunity for you, or are you looking to strengthen that?
Yeah, definitely. We need to look at how we support public health. For the first time in a long time, in recent times, we've increased public health's budget. We were, I think, near the end. I think we're 1% of our budget, so we're now close to 2%. And we gave them all that they could take without being able to have challenges finding the right labor. Again, labor is really important in Atlantic Canada, no matter what sector you're looking at, skilled and unskilled. Same thing for healthcare and attracting healthcare workers. So, but they do have a budget that escalates from 5.7 million to 13 point something in the fourth year to hire more epidemiologists, public health nurses, which will do both prepare us better for pandemics, but it'll also help really promote healthier communities, which is something I think that governments haven't done enough of in the past, and actually makes me think back to a nutrition course I took at the Mount for an elective, which I thought was a good one. But healthy living, healthy lifestyles, and support from government to make sure we do that will pay off the most dividends to our healthcare system as we have possible.
Absolutely. I was wondering if you could speak on the immunization plan in Nova Scotia and government strategy around it right now. It seems we're slower, a little slower than most provinces in the rollout of that. Is there a desire to fast track this process? And is it your view that it may allow the economy to kickstart quicker?
So we have been using the same approach with our vaccine rollout as we have with other, really the whole pandemic, and that's a cautious, reliable approach. So all of the vaccines that we have are spoken for. One of the reasons why we are behind other provinces for our first dose is we did hold back and commit our second dose early on, and then that advice changed from the federal government that we could wait 120 days. So we're ahead of several different provinces on giving that second dose. I don't regret that choice. Those people that have second doses are in large part long-term care residents, some healthcare workers. So as a percentage, what we're delivering is still right up there in the middle of the pack. It's just that we still have over 10,000 doses that we're storing that are committed to people that we ethically need to deliver on. And we're not in a rush. We want to make sure it's an efficient, effective delivery program. We're about to go to 140 different pharmacies and delivering that, while other provinces didn't create the infrastructure we had to manage that robust supply. Dr. Strang told me today that he saw an email from someone in Ontario that had to call 50 different pharmacy clinics before they could find somewhere to get it. So we have a one online system. We've added postal codes to that today. We don't have any of those complications. We didn't have to cancel 7,000 shots like another province did today to people that were booked, because those, we have a guarantee once someone books their appointment that they're going to get their shot. So it's an approach that has worked with other aspects of the pandemic. And after we get through about mid-May, once our second doses go in, you'll see our numbers go up for first dose as a percentage.
Thank you for speaking on the progress on that. I think Jeff McKinnon had something to say on that too.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. And just sensitive to times, I think we're about to come up on time, but Premier Rankin, I just had a couple quick questions for you. Obviously, this is largely a student audience, so I'm curious on your perspective or the government's perspective on the importance of students to the economy, and what programs or what's in place to try and not only keep students, domestic students, but I would say it's safe to say there's an increasing number of international students coming to the universities in Nova Scotia. So what's government's thoughts on how do we keep that workforce in the province?
Yeah, we need to definitely do what we can. I mean, that's one of what I reference a comparative advantage is our 10 universities and our 13 locations of our NSCC campuses. I think really we need to look at what programs are for future job growth and how we retain people that are coming here for world-class education. And one of the changes we made is that if you have a job offer and you're from out of our country and you come here for your studies, then you have that fast tracking to get to your residency. And I think those are the type of creative programs. We push really hard with the federal government to get more and more out of our allocation. The Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program has been a successful one. We lead Atlantic Canada and Nova Scotia for our retention rates now, which is a really positive sign. I think that speaks to our welcoming nature here in Nova Scotia. And I think it's really just such a big strength to have people from all over the world here. The vibrancy that it brings to communities, you see more and more different types of businesses, restaurants, and it actually provides the business case because we need people economically. We won't be sustainable with our aging population. And places like CBRM, the increase of international students there made the case for transit, and so that means all people in that region benefit from transit. And so government needs to help leverage what's happening already organically and invest in those types of things like transit, infrastructure, high speed internet, things that people are looking for when they come here. And supporting young people here, we need to continue to, as I said, for the reason that we have an aging population, we need to have just what young people are looking for, a more modern regulations around something that's as simple as going to a patio for a beer. You should be able to take your dog, like things like that. So that was one of the policies I came up with early on. And I think there's a lot more we can do so that we're a more progressive society. I'd say, like when you're traveling to world-class tourism destinations in Europe and things like that, we need to get with the times a bit more, I'd say.
That was some of the best news I've had in a while, so that I can bring my dog to the patio. So thank you.
Yeah, I second that. So Premier Rankin, just to build on that, and I was reading an article this week about, I think it was an Entrevester, but just about the Atlantic provinces becoming a bit of a hub for kind of technology and sort of biotechnology as I guess an industry or industries. Is that like in your view, and granted that's Atlantic Canada, but I think Nova Scotia largely leads the way in that. Is that by design, or is that facilitated because of the pandemic and people wanting to kind of move east, or is that program driven, or what in your mind, what's driving that? And is that I guess it sounds like maybe that's a strategic sector that the government is chasing down. Did you have any sort of thoughts on that?
I think that is one of our biggest opportunities in front of us. Tomorrow, I'll be announcing an economic growth council that I campaigned on as well. I do believe a lot of these ideas are outside of government, and the private sector has a lot of really talented individuals that know what they're looking for to expand. So there will be people on that team, women and men, that have experience on how do we attract more and more companies here? How do we keep them? What's our investment readiness here right now from a regulatory perspective? So we're doing a lot of work to reduce our red tape, but that council will have a mandate to be a startup capital in Canada. And so you're quite right. There is some momentum, and I think that we really need to capitalize on that. Like the Dell computer science program is going to go from 200 to I think around 400, and they really want to attract some of the most known people in the world to their campus. And some of the other universities with those programs got some funding. That's the kind of investment I think that government can help with, which hits at what companies are really looking for. And that's what IBM and other companies are looking for, even more in some cases than the tax rate that they'll be charged is access to labor, skilled labor in these areas. So the biotech in Sydney, I think Sydney's drawing more than any other place in Atlantic Canada with those 9 or 10 companies. And actually, during the pandemic, we've increased our startups by 6% in the province, which is incredible. So we're in an enviable position. We're almost back to pre-employment levels. Now there's hours cut, so it's not all what it seems. But so far, we're leading in our economic recovery, and startups need to be a big part of that.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of refreshing, and from my perspective, and I'm not overly engaged in sort of the tech or biotech sectors, but I have heard of a lot of Canadian companies kind of onshoring programming jobs and things that historically were kind of outsourced overseas. And the feedback is Ontario's too expensive, the labor market's much too difficult in that sector. So a lot of them are looking to Nova Scotia. So I'm glad it makes sense that sort of government's going in that direction. I've purposely avoided budget questions, but I'm going to ask you one kind of high level one. And I mean, looking at the budget, it largely seems kind of aligned with your platform and your various initiatives, which is great. How do you see, there's a significant investment in mental health, which is fantastic. But I think just the general, I guess, healthcare costs are, they just seem, even ignoring COVID, they just seem to be increasing at pretty aggressive rates, and probably aligns to the aging population. What does that look like in the long term for you, and how does government look to kind of manage that and try and balance a budget when you've got cost pressures that significant, sort of staring you down?
Yeah, no, that is the key question facing all provinces right now. And as you probably know, all premiers have asked the Prime Minister to consider increasing the Canada Health Transfer. So historically, if you go back to the 70s, where we were looking at roughly 35% of the health system being funded by the federal government. We're way below that now. So wait times and surgeries, the doctor issue, all those things, these are national issues. We can continue to look at ways we can support. We increased long-term care by 100 million, home care another 20 million. We raised our compensation for doctors, highest in Atlantic Canada. All those things will help, but we do need the federal government to step up more. They need to. We could throw another $1 billion at this issue, and it's still going to be an issue. So that, and I would say what you hit on in your first question about young people, we need the tax base here to pay for all these baby boomers that are retiring and will be more of a cost to our healthcare system. So there's definitely no easy answer to that, but those are two things I think about a lot. And hopefully, so far, the Prime Minister has said after the pandemic he'll look at this issue closely, but so far nothing yet. But we need more support.
Yeah, I don't envy your position for sure. Recognizing we're at time, and I'd like to try and stick to the schedule. One last question. I mean, you're 40, let's call it 42 days into being Premier of Nova Scotia, and I'm a big proponent of kind of self-reflection. When you retire, whenever that may be, and kind of look back and say, okay, I was Premier for X number of years, what do you want that story to be? Like, how would you like to be characterized, or what would you like that narrative to be when people say Premier Rankin? What do you want that, what do you want them to think about?
Well, I think hopefully that it's that I was shown to be fair. I think a government needs to look after all Nova Scotians and not one or two special interest groups. That you need to have courage to take some tough decisions, and we need to really change our structure in our systems here. If I can do anything in the finite amount of time I'm in, is to look at system changes. I'm really proud of the new Office of Equity and Anti-Racism Initiatives, and we need to really start to pay attention to the way we create policy, the way that we hire people, and I hope that if we make those changes significant enough in the public sector, that our private sector does that too, and that we see more and more that we all benefit from that. This isn't about handouts to people. This is ensuring that we have that everyone has the same opportunities. And we've done some good work. There are specifics that we've done good work on, but we need whole system change. And so some of the work that we're doing already around more diverse appointments to the most senior management roles in our government, I think that will encourage more people to see that they have a role in this, and that they can really achieve whatever they want to achieve. And if I can do that, then I'd be very pleased to be able to set a bit of a new trajectory.
Very good. Yeah, so like I said, keeping sensitive to your time, and I'm sure you're a pretty busy person these days. Just on behalf of the Mount, the Department of Business and Tourism, Beth and I would like to really thank you for taking the time to join us. I think it was awesome. I think the students would have had tremendous value from this. And once all of this settles down, we'd love to have you on campus for a tour or a session. So yeah, really appreciate it. And thanks very much. And hopefully we'll connect in again with you soon.
Oh, that's great. I really appreciate that. And hello to all the, I see there's over 100 people on. So really appreciate everyone joining us, and especially the students. My one ask is to get involved. You don't have to run for public office, but these are really important times, honestly. And young people need to push the envelope and not settle for the status quo. So that's my one message.
Very good. There you go. There's some great advice from Premier Rankin. Premier Rankin, thank you very much. Again, we're so proud to call you a Mount graduate, and love to stay in touch and love to have you on campus. So take care. Best of luck with everything, and hopefully we'll cross paths again soon.
For sure.
Cheers.
Thank you, Jeff and Beth. Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks everyone for attending. That is a wrap for our final session for this year for the Fireside Chat series. We'll hopefully continue this over the next couple terms. So hopefully everybody ends the semester well. Good luck with exams, and we'll be in touch over the summer and into September. Thanks, guys. Take care.